The EU is struggling to agree on candidates to fill the bloc's top posts, leaving member states frustrated by leaders' inability to compromise.
I think this is a very poor image that we give to both the Council and Europe. No one can be satisfied with what just happened for so many hours.
We have to find a compromise that has more advantages than disadvantages.
The new appointees will have to hit the ground running to deal with the bloc's mounting economic problems. The latest is the threat of US tariffs on goods worth $4 billion. These include products like meat, cheese, olives, and certain whiskeys. The US is already planning to impose tariffs on European products worth $21 billion, including aircraft parts, motorcycles, and fish. It's all in retaliation for the EU's Airbus subsidies, which the World Trade Organization says violate international rules. Airbus's American rival Boeing also receives government aid in the form of tax perks. Those too have been declared illegal. And the EU is threatening tariffs on American products like helicopters, condiments, and fruit juices. At a meeting of small businesses in the Netherlands last month, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo defended the tariffs.
It's imperative that government take actions to ensure that those markets are open to them so that we can sell American agricultural products into those places, so that we can sell American goods on terms that are fair and equal, reciprocal. Those are fundamental rules of how trade and international markets must work, and we're determined to achieve that.
Airbus and Boeing have laid complaints against each other's subsidies at the World Trade Organization for 15 years. The body is expected to rule on the dispute by September, and analysts hope it'll stop a transatlantic trade war before it takes off. Paolo Montecillo, TRT World.
Let's get more on this now with Rajneesh Narula in London. He's a professor of international business regulation at the University of Reading's Henley Business School. Welcome back to Money Talks, Rajneesh. Now, as we heard, the Trump administration says Airbus receives state subsidies, which are, in his view, unfair, makes them, I guess, less competitive, or Boeing less competitive against Airbus. But doesn't Boeing also receive state support from the US government?
Indeed, this has been such a long-standing argument, going back at least 20 years, if not more, ever since Airbus was founded. In fact, Airbus won a lawsuit against Boeing in the WTO at the end of March, in fact, the EU has been preparing tariffs against the United States for these illegal subsidies for actually the same amount of money as now Trump is claiming to want to charge for this latest round, so to speak.
So I guess it's really hard to get an exact dollar figure on the subsidies that each of the plane makers receive, but are they about even? Do the governments, I guess in Europe and in the US, do they provide about the same amount of support for each of the plane makers?
Well, they both provide some kind of indirect support, either through tax breaks or, in the case of Boeing, by subsidizing defense contracts as a way for R&D and so forth. So Boeing gets money to build military aircraft, which is at higher prices than the prices they charge for the commercial aircraft. And they also provide the lawsuit in March was about subsidies provided in the form of tax breaks by Washington State and other forms of tax breaks that were provided by the U.S., we're waiting now for the WTO to decide the exact amount. So Trump is going ahead of himself by claiming that it's 11 billion. The WTO indicates it's about 4 billion, and the exact number will be determined by the WTO in the next few months. But Trump, of course, being Trump, doesn't want to beat around the bush, and he invented this new number of 11 billion, which is roughly equal to what the Europeans were planning to charge for this lawsuit they won in March.
Interesting. So a lot of tit for tat there. But just looking at the prospect of EU tariffs, we know the Eurozone economy isn't going so well at the moment. GDP growth is sluggish, as is inflation. If these tariffs do happen, what impact will that have on the EU economy?
Well, I think the Americans are being careful not to overdo it. So the main point of attack is European aircraft, that is helicopters and airplanes, which essentially means they're targeting the countries that mainly manufacture Airbus products, like the UK, Spain, France, and Germany. So that's what they're after. And in a way, they want to kind of block out or raise the price of Boeing's competitors so that Boeing products are more popular in the US. And this is not new, of course. They've pushed out Bombardier, which was providing aircraft in the US, and they're probably going to go after China and Russia as well on this. So this is going to be about aircraft, that keeping out European Airbus products from the US market.
Interesting. Now, we all know that, from people like yourself, the markets and other experts, that really no one truly benefits from a trade war. Do you think that the US will go ahead and pull the trigger on these EU tariffs?
Well, one thing we've learned from Trump in 2 years is that he really likes this tariff war thing, this trade wars. So when he said he was going to go after Europe for its restrictions on agriculture, and he's been targeting Europe for 21 billion, I wouldn't be surprised if he actually went ahead with some level, maybe not the 11 or 12 billion, but he certainly will go after European agricultural products and to a lesser extent automobiles.
Okay, I guess it's another wait and see what happens. Rajneesh Narula in London, thank you for your time as always.